What's up, everyone? Hello, hello, hello. We're back with you. Another episode of Origin Stories, episode 2 or 3. Anywho, today we have our guest, BigRichie, Richie 2004, Richard. How are you, Richard?
Hello, everyone. I'm on TV, Mom.
Wow.
I'm doing fantastic, Sean. It's a hot day in Ohio. I'm trying to stay. I guess it's night now. It's still a hot night. It's still 80 degrees, and I took Dixie out, but I'm doing well.
Awesome. Jimmy T1000. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you, Jamaican Dude?
Gonna go with what Richie said. I was shirtless, and I didn't want to put on the shirt. Got this hot.
But you scheduled a recording, so you had to put a shirt on.
You know what? Life, adulting sucks. But anyways, since we're here to talk to Richie, the founder of the NSL, the great league builder, what everyone has followed his footsteps. We're here to talk to Richie about Magic. Richie, how did you get into Magic?
Oh boy. Okay, so thanks so much, by the way, for those compliments. I just ran a league with you, and you know what, Sean? I think we all laid the groundwork, so kudos to us. All right, Magic. It was 96. Yeah, it was definitely 96. The person who was taking care of us, because my mom was busy dealing with some legal proceedings at the time, just leave it at that. She was dating the guy who owned the local card shop.
What?
And she basically took us there. And this was 95, excuse me, this wasn't 96, this was 95. Because I have a very vivid memory of someone opening a Tundra and getting mad at a pack of Revised.
Yeah.
So,
dude, Dual Lands sucked back then.
Dual Lands, they hated it. They were looking for, I think it was Force of Nature at the time. No, it was not Force. I don't remember what it was, but anyway.
That was always my favorite.
I went in and I would sit there and do my homework after, and there were people playing Magic at the time. There was the Star Wars TCG, I think, was another one. Remember, there was another TCG. I'm pretty sure it was Star Wars was going on at the time. Like, that was a big one.
That was a little bit later. There was
it later?
There was Jihad. Remember that one?
I don't.
Based off of Vampire the Masquerade.
Maybe that's what they were playing. I don't know. There were two TCGs I remember competing with Magic at the time. I thought it was Star Wars, maybe not. I could be wrong on that. And it was a comic shop, and the owner would just give me cards because he couldn't sell some of the stuff. Like, they were just bulk bins of one. I remember you used to be able to get like 100 cards in that bin for $1, and you can go through, and there were commons and uncommons, and I mean, like, it was pretty deep. I do remember seeing some beta stuff in there. Like, that's how alpha beta stuff was in there. Lands
back
and
then,
stuff.
Beta Wild Growth was still nothing.
So I got into collecting. Like, I actually got one of those old school Trapper Keepers, and I would just put cards in, and I'd start building. I built a set out. I built my first set out. It was a revised set. I had most of the commons and uncommons. Go in there for $1. He'd let me get 100 and a bag of Famous Amos cookies. So, so I'd eat my cookies and I'd put the cards in, and then eventually I learned how to play. I don't remember how or when it was that I learned how to play, but we didn't use sleeves, and
just raw.
Yeah, and I have a couple of my original duels from Revised that I got. We were still selling Revised packs at the time. They were a little bit more expensive. They were $2.99, I think, instead of $2.75 for the whatever ones, and $1.99 for the 8-card packs that were in there.
Yeah,
I think
Homelands and the Dark, Fallen Empires and the Dark.
Yeah, something weird. So I mean, like, I've been playing for pretty much at least 2/3 of my life. But that's how I got into the game, and then I started getting really competitive around the time when Urza Saga was going through iterations. We had the dojo. I don't know if anyone knows what the dojo is.
Oh my god, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah, we went there through AOL. We would read up about like this Tolarian Academy deck from Rome, the red curve deck. It wasn't Pond, I think it's Sly.
It was red Sly.
Yeah.
The Mountains Win Again is another name for it.
Yeah, and it would just play like Orcish, the 2-mana 2/2 dude who had a massive drawback. We just played 1/2 3-drops, so like we learned about mana curves and stuff like that. And that's when I started really playing and paying attention. And I was like 12 at the time, right? Like 11, 12. And then I started really getting to like super competitive Magic when I was 14, 15. I actually played one of the last Junior Super Series matches. It was in Orlando. There's a funny story about that. I had met Brian Kibler there. That's how long ago it was.
Oh, man.
So I've been playing a while. I'm not proclaiming I'm friends with Brian Kibler, but I did meet him. And there was a story I told him about where I spilled a drink on some of his cards. And he recalled that. And I was the kid who was dumb enough to do that. So
oh my goodness.
Been playing for a while. But yeah, just been enjoying Magic.
That's awesome. When did you get into EDH?
So Shards of Alara was out. That was the block. And we had just done a couple of two-headed giant events at our store. And we weren't really sure about the format. We just heard about EDH at the time. And we wanted to play it in a way where we could have prizes. So we all built these really terrible optimal decks. I mean, like, we had cards that we put in that clearly aren't optimal. We were playing the really bad fetches, like the new fetches, the Mirage fetches we were playing. We were also playing the Onslaught fetches. Like, our mana base had Ravnica, or it didn't have, it had Ravnica bounce lands in it, I think. Like, it was rough, our decks. But we ran into this problem where we didn't know how to really interact. Like, we were playing Counterspell, Force of Will I played, a couple of other people had cards like that. Like, we had deep card pools to play, but like, we weren't really sure, like, good spells to counter, good spells to interact with. Politics hadn't been figured out, and we had no idea how the stack worked, so we got creative with that.
Okay.
But, you know, I don't know if that's cEDH, but we were playing for prizes, and I kind of feel like we were playing to win, and that's rule 0, and you know, that's kind of like how I treat it. Like, deck quality aside, as long as you're playing to win, you're playing, you know, you're not playing the spite game, your intention is winning, sure. I got more into the format around 2016, 2015, when I was working over at Wizards of the Coast. So, Lee Sharp, I had met at PAX, and we played some EDH in a pod, and I showed him my Legacy deck. I had an old Legacy deck that was foiled out. It was Bug Control at one with Jace the Mind Sculptor. It was like, whatever. And he's like, "Are you like playing competitive Magic?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he showed me this really cool cEDH deck he had. And I didn't know it was cEDH. I just saw it was just like a bunch of tutors and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. So I literally slapped together a Storm deck and played it at PAX on that Sunday and grinded prizes for it.
With Tendrils?
Yes. With Mind's Desire, Tendrils of Agony. It was 5 color. I played Horde of Notions as the commander. Just so I could have access to 5 colors. Right, I had no idea what this looked like.
Didn't matter.
Right.
And then I go on and I'm like, I wonder what else is going on in this format. Like, people are playing it. I don't know too much about it. And MTG Salvation had a pretty large community over there. I mean, they still do, but this was before they got acquired. They had some competitive EDH threads, and I read over like what the Storm decks were looking like. And at that time, I was also moving away from Wizards of the Coast, so I started going to Grand Prix with friends. I was still working for Wizards, so I couldn't play in them, but I played in side events that I was allowed to play in, and I played with some friends. And we played EDH, cEDH at those tournaments. We would try to build these really busted, broken decks.
Right.
We had no idea like how far off we were from the format, but that's what we did. We played those, and a couple of those players are now on the Pro Tour, and they still play Magic. Well, they were Pro Tour players before the Pro Tour folded and whatever, pre-COVID. So
Yeah.
that was pretty fun though. And kind of then just stumbled into the Nexus one night. I had Tassiger built, and Timmy scolded me and was just like, no. No. Yes. Sorry, Sinestra. Timmy scolded me. He's like, no. And then I built Niv Mizzet.
Yeah.
Our Lord and Savior.
Our Lord. Hey, dude. Niv's. I got more Niv games coming this season. Don't think I don't.
And where can we find those Niv games, Tim?
Oh, it's gonna be on the Major League Commander. It's either gonna be streamed on the Mind Sculptors YouTube or on the Mental Misplays Twitch, or I'll just record my games and upload them to our channel.
There you go. Listen, our Lord and Savior Niv Mizzet is great. People have not caught on it. There's just a few disciples in our cult. A few disciples.
I feel like when I stomped Timmy pretty hard with it one night, I kind of earned a little respect. I heard a little bit because I'm like, yeah, I'm not playing. Don't worry, Timmy, I'm not playing that. I'm playing Niv Mizzet instead. He's like, what? Are you playing Deke's version? I'm like, no,
my version.
Yeah. Oh boy, my early decks were so bad, but the thing was, my early decks were built around the pods I was playing with in paper, right?
Right.
So,
well, and
Yeah,
your
own
Tassiger
local
list was not good.
wasn't terrible. I didn't have Imperial Steel because I didn't own one.
I don't
So I
even think
couldn't
you were.
play
On,
it.
I don't even think you were on console.
There was a console.
No, there wasn't Consult Fish at the time.
At the time, it was Scepter, because Timmy also scolded me on Tassiger, saying Tassiger was bad. Because I started on Tassiger too. And yeah, Timmy said Tassiger was bad, the bad deck, you should have played.
Why didn't I didn't just say it was a bad deck. I said it was a bad deck, and then there was about 15 minutes of diatribe after it as to why.
Bad deck, you should play Tim the Thrasios. And I'm like, no, I want to play my deck and how I want to play it, blah, blah, blah. But not saying he was right, but in that meta, it wasn't the Nexus yet, but in that meta, there was some cold players there that would lean on you for interaction 24/7. So
See, and that's like the difference that I came from. No one leaned on me for interaction. Once started people leaning on me and said, Tassiger player, you do it. And Tassiger, and
you would have the mana activate Tassiger to get this counter spell. And you're like, yeah, I'll do that. And then you run out of interaction and lose the game after playing for 2 hours.
Bleeding out slowly.
Bleeding is terrible.
That's what happened when I played Tassiger.
yeah.
That's how I know. I played it like a lot because I did not want to play Tim the Thrasios.
We wanted to be our little, I guess we wanted to be the hippie of the format. So Richie, you could pretty much say you were the founders of cEDH in your time. I think you were testing the waters before it.
Yeah, I mean, like in the Alara, like when we were trying shards of Alara for prizes, but like I don't know if that's like co-founding it, but I do think the Grand Prix circuit, there was a low-key cEDH scene. Okay, and it was a lot of unknown and flat, like, so the thing was, we knew that Flash was legal. I don't think Hulk had been no, Hulk definitely was unbanned at that point. It was 2016. There were Hulk piles I think you could run. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. I feel like
I don't remember when Hulk got unbanned.
But I had been at that Grand Prix where Flash Hulk ran rampant, and it left such a bad taste in my mouth seeing that deck. I wanted nothing to do with Flash Hulk for a while. So,
oh my goodness.
I tested with people, and like we couldn't figure out anything better than Flash Hulk.
Yep, that's what it was. So, what was some of the resources that you used coming into EDH, cEDH? Like, what did you use? Were you Scryfall? How did you build some of your decks? Was it just from your knowledge from being an old Magic player? Like, what were some of your resources?
So we were playing EDH, and we were playing EDH games to win on Magic Online. And basically, when we were playing EDH, it's really funny. They had these old sets on Magic Online called, it was like Vintage Masters or something. Someone will know. And the format, it wasn't Vintage, it was, it was Classic. And Wizards had only put half the dual lands in one of the sets. So I remember playing EDH with only half the dual lands on Magic Online and fetching out shock lands.
Right.
And then, so you used Moto, because you only need one of each card. We did that, and it was really inexpensive to play at the time on Moto. And multiplayer was okay before they ruined it with the updates, but it's gotten a lot better recently. Play on there again, still with some friends. We're still playing. We've been playing for 15, 20 years. I feel like playing since Moto first started, when you had the old kit, 7th edition kit with the rocks on it and the CD.
Awesome. Yeah,
I have my kit somewhere. Like, it's, but we played on Moto, and for those of you who don't know, that's Magic Online, not Arena. You can play EDH there. Games will crash sometimes, but whatever. And then that's where I built the decks, and I followed MTG Salvation pretty religiously on some threads, and there wasn't a whole lot listed, and people were hosting their decks on like different websites. I remember Google Forms where you could find some decks. I want to say it was like Google Forms or somewhere it was hosted. I remember seeing stuff for it wasn't Tapped Out, it was the other one that was before Tapped Out, where people used to host decks. But it didn't show you, you couldn't link the cards at the time. Like, it was bad. You couldn't link it to the Gatherer. So we had those lists, we'd copy and paste them, and we'd import them into Magic Online and see what the lists looked like. And we'd play some of those, and we'd make our own tweaks. And, like, there's a big difference. Like, I liked activating certain cards. Like, I have a unnatural love for Pernicious Deed. So, like, in all the bug decks, I'd jam Pernicious Deed.
Yeah, you do. It's so obnoxious.
I still do. I love it. It's such a fun card.
Honestly, it's not the worst.
It's not the worst. No, it's not.
I think one of my first cEDH decks I worked on was Damia. And I made a Damia lands deck of all things. And my friend Menace and I, his name is Dennis, but we call him Menace, not Dennis the Menace.
But why not?
Shout outs to Menace. He's out there. He's the funniest dude from New York. Total love the dude. He and we built this Damia deck, and we thought it was really good. And oh man, I don't think you can play Damia in the format anymore. But hey,
Damia was the one that you dropped to 7 on your upkeep.
Yes, it was 7 mana. You can't. You skip your draw step.
Yes,
but we figured ways. We were using Necropotence, and we were using. Thought the most broken thing was that we could use Mana Vault to cast it. We never paid life, so we were happy about cute things like that. So we built a Damia land deck that we tried to put 2020s into play, Sean.
Woo!
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
Nice.
You know what my first cEDH deck, or my first Commander deck was? EDH.
What?
It was a Hermit Druid Progenitus deck.
Ooh,
lovely.
So the plan, I had two. First one was Una with Painter Grindstone, because Painter was legal. And then the second one was you jammed an early Hermit, to mill your library to activate Bomberman to cast Progenitus on like turn 1, turn 2.
Oh man,
Which
I think
pretty much got you there at that point.
Yeah. That's awesome.
my first EDH decks were Rafik. I remember building Rafik the Many. Don't give me that look, Sean.
Is that the one that copies?
No, that's the one that when a creature attacks by itself, it gains double strike and it has exalted, and it's like
the Voltron of Voltrons.
This was I think Uro might have been around at the time too. I think Uro's in the same block that was the first thing I built though, and it had the Elspeth Planeswalker, and that was a big deal because that was the first mythic Planeswalker, and like God, that deck is hot garbage. But that's where I came up with the where I came up with the Boggles deck, and that's why like I have my casual Boggles deck. I like to beat people in the face. I like to go smash.
Oh, you mean like activating Azuri a bunch of times and attacking people?
Oh, that's a pretty good way.
That's elf way. For me, ever reminiscent, mine was Angry Jellybean. Good old Angry Jellybean. Good old lands matter, play lines, make 5/5 swing. That was the joy of Magic for me. Playing lands because you can't interact with lands, and that was my joy.
Yeah, see, that's the problem with Omnath right there. Because one of the big social contracts in Commander is no MLD.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So essentially, Omnath is like uninteractable with because you can't blow up all. Because the ways that you can attack Omnath require you to just
blow up all lands. Yep. Just a hit land destruction. Armageddon? Oh, no. No bueno.
So, speaking of which, I guess I can't play my Wakanda Forever Obliterate deck with, I have the Jund Commander. He's one of my favorite things
Lord
for my casual decks. Lord Windgrace Obliterate. I don't know why I like that. I just do. I like stupid things like that.
I had a friend that had it was Bird. He had this 5-color Allura deck that was literally just board wipes and land destruction. That was it. He just didn't like people's permanents. And he just plays Planeswalkers to win the game. It was the worst thing to play out. Worst thing to do. All right. So while we reminisce there for a while, that was great to go.
I got one more real quick.
Okay, go.
Adam forced me to play about 120 games against Norin the Weary. 1v1.
Cast something, trigger.
Yeah, I was helping him tune the deck.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I told him he's never allowed to play it against me ever again once we got it done testing.
Yeah, you know what I like about building casual decks, and we'll tie back into this, Sean, but just want to put this out. Sometimes you find really unique, powerful things.
Right.
I'm going to give you guys an example. Everyone knows Elves broke the format in Modern, or it was extended. Well, I think it was extended. It was the Pro Tour with Glimpse of Nature Elves. It was quote unquote the best kept secret, whatever. And Glimpse of Nature was played. Before that, my friend had a deck, like a casual deck built around centaurs. And there was a centaur that you could tap a centaur to make mana. It was Seton, Seton, Seton. And we played Glimpse of Nature in that deck. We were just like, oh, this is pretty strong. Like, this is a nice, cool, casual deck. And like, you play these casual strategies, but there's some really, really powerful things sometimes that go on that people make. And like, I've seen that with cEDH and EDH in general. Like, some of like I remember when people saw Tatiova, they kind of scoffed at it.
They did. I did.
And like, I've been playing it and I'm like,
I did.
This is a legit, like, like good. Like it's not terrible. Like it's really good, I think.
I mean,
And
one
I
Jewel
think
Lotus
that
helped.
Yes.
It helped.
Yes, it did. It did, but like it's
having the increase in ability to get her down faster has helped. Like,
I did scoff at it. I thought it was also trash until I played it, and that was for all the people I give shit to about that. It's definitely fun, playable. I think you can play it across all power levels.
shout out to you, Yvonne.
Yeah, Yvonne was a strong believer, and I believe we gave him a lot of stats for it. All right, so as a seasoned player, Richie, what would be some of the resources you use a lot, helpful for you while you do your magic stuff?
So I've tried to connect with people, and I've tried to watch what people do, and I watch a lot of games. There's a lot of recorded games. I mean, playing with Power is kind of the big one, but go beyond playing with Power. Like, they're awesome. They put great production out there, but there's a lot of different content creators out there that push games, that publish games.
Yep.
And you can see different interactions and see how different things look in different games. And it kind of gives you an idea. It's like, oh, that's an interesting thought someone put out there. One of the things was Mons had his cEDH deck, but like he had tuned it down to the point where it's like rule of law effects when everyone was running Oracle. Everyone's still running Oracle console. And I'm like, God, you can activate cEDH and just play through rule of law. Like,
Yep.
That's pretty interesting.
Right.
You know? And like at the time when he was doing it, I don't think a lot of people really caught on to that. They looked at the deck list and they're just like, I think I can tune this better, because it was the general feedback. And my response is ignore like what's in the deck list, figure out what's really interesting and what captivates you, and focus on that. And like maybe you see something there. And I think that there's a very large amount of content out there. I think that YouTube videos are probably the best point to start at, because you can see people and listen to people's decision making, and you can listen to people talk. And I mean, we have recorded games on the Nexus that are pretty crazy, that have a lot of politics. And I think that like the biggest stumbling blocks to someone getting into the format is finding a deck they want to play, that they like to play, and B, getting their voice. Sorry, go ahead, Timmy.
No, and that's reasonably, like, objectively good enough to play in cEDH.
Yeah. B, getting their voice at the table, and like being able to, you know, say, not so fast. I don't like how this is going.
Right. Let's
readjust the focus where we think threat assessment's supposed to be. And then C, threat assessment in general, right? Like, all I hear is everyone's just like, oh, you have terrible threat assessment, you have bad threat assessment, the wrong threat assessment. The majority of the time, people look at cards in play as threat assessment. You have to be able to read the entire table and all the action that's going on.
Correct.
If someone is clearly holding mana open and saying pass, they're waiting for an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you just sit there and you're just like, well, you know, this Nagila player is building up a crazy amount of advantage. This other player's just sitting there and passing, like not tapping out, not helping, because they wanna be like, all right, Nagila player's getting focused on by everyone. You know,
don't mind me over here.
So when you start to get in seasoned pods, you have people saying, hey, why are you passing with all that mana open? What are you doing? You know?
God,
what's going on over there?
So I believe there's two sides to the story. There's some people who believe that they should let the cards do the talking, and cEDH is not where you politics. And I think you disagree with that. You believe that politics, because of multiplayer, politics is necessary, for this format, is what you're saying.
I think that if you're going to put blue in your deck, and you're going to have some counters in your deck and ways to stop the stack, you've got to realize that, and I firmly believe this, that I can stop Sean, but I can't stop Timmy, who's waiting for Sean to eat up the interaction. Or
why would I wait for Sean to eat up all everybody's interaction?
Exactly.
Why?
It gives you a window to go off because
yeah.
And you know,
just jam Godo over and over again.
But you know, I'm getting there and I'm like, I can't stop both of you. This is my interaction I have. So if I'm going to use this, we're going to make a deal where I get back to my turn and everyone untaps. And I promise I won't go off, but we're going to slow the game down, you know? Because I can't win. And sometimes when I'm playing these combo decks, you know, and this is where I'm not playing interaction, I'm not playing politics, I'm looking at the table and I'm like, well, this is probably the best turn I'm going to have to go off. This is probably the best spot I think I'm going to get. I'm going to probably have to eat 1 or 2 pieces of interaction to go through. I'm fine with that. That's not that burr philosophy of let's go fast, let's go under everything. It's the everything looks fine, like this is my best opportunity. Or I have to go off because I'm not going to get another turn. Clearly see I'm not going to get another turn. And I think that those are also stumbling blocks for people who play more combo-esque decks. So like you have these really interesting dynamics, and you should explore those and figure out, you know, hey, look, let's read the table, let's slow down, let's not look at what's going on with me, let's look at what's going on with everyone else, and then let's figure out, well, how do I add up to that equation? Where am I going to be in a turn from now? You know, what do I think is going to happen? And when you start thinking like that, and you can kind of figure out what people are doing, who has interaction, you get a feel for like how they're playing, what they kept, what they played, why they left mana open, why they didn't do something like cast their commander, for instance. You get a better sense of what's going on, and I think then you start capitalizing on that type of information.
Right.
So there's a lot of resources out there, but the number one resource is just jam games. Go to the Nexus, go to the cEDH Discord, go to the cEDH Games Discord. There's 3 Discords that are active, that are open and friendly, and support those. They're free to play. One of them uses Trice. I think actually 2 of them use Trice. You know, I think both also offer paper. The Nexus offers paper as well.
Yeah.
And go into the format with an open mind, and don't necessarily say, I disagree with whatever you're saying. Say, that's interesting. Can you elaborate why you think this play is better than that? Like, what am I missing? Right. And I'm very hard-headed, and it took me a while to realize I'm not really getting anywhere. Let me ask why they think one thing is better than the other. And then you start understanding a little bit more of dynamics of what's going on. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Very hard-headed is an understatement, people.
Sean,
understatement.
Sean, my skull is just as thick as yours, bud. You and I, bud.
I mean, as the person who has actually looked at skulls before, skulls can be thicker than other people's skulls.
Well done, Tim. Well done. But all right. I believe. No, those were some great pointers. I believe
they were.
If
they were.
whoever is listening, that's some great tips you should take away from that. So Richie, when you came into the cEDH community, did you come into it with an expectation? And then when you got into it, what did that your expectation, was it met, or what did you experience when you got into the community?
Besides getting yelled at by me.
Yes. I got yelled at by Timmy, and I got dunked on by Royal. Shoutouts to Royal, I miss you, bud. So I basically came into thinking this was a turn 2 format. Like, people are going to try to kill me on turn 2. I don't know why. I think it was a Flash Hulk deck that used Flash and Hulk, and it had that that combo where you could mill stuff and you put Labman into play or something. I don't remember the
Breakfast Hulk?
Cephalid combo. Shuffle Hulk. That's
No,
it,
Shuffle
yeah.
Hulk didn't use Labman. Breakfast did.
Oh, Breakfast Hulk. Well, it was Breakfast Hulk or whatever. I saw that and I'm just like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, you know, I was well aware that Flash Hulk was a thing. When I saw the Breakfast, I'm just like, oh my god, like, this looks terrifying. And I learned it is a turn 2 format, but it's not a turn 2 format in the sense of people are trying to kill you on turn 2. It's a turn 2 format in the sense of people are looking for opportunities to win on turn 2.
Right.
Looking for a window, and that's the biggest difference. It wasn't, you know, I'm going to win on turn 2, there's nothing you can do to stop me. It was, oh, you're gonna do that? Well, because you decided to tap out, I'm just gonna win over the top of you. Or I'm gonna do this over the top of you. Because you didn't want to respect what was going on.
Right.
And it made me realize, like, there's definite power to holding mana open, even if you're bluffing. And sometimes, like, tapping out for a rock, especially in that time, felt like pretty scary. Like,
Yeah,
tapping out
you're being brave.
I felt real scared about tapping out for a Fellware Stone. Put a Fellware Stone on the stack. Oh, going off over the top. So if you weren't playing those decks, and if you were, by the way, it was, well, let's let everyone use their interaction. Let's slow it down. I'm in no rush to cast this. And I learned patience is more or less rewarded if you can bide your time and get your spot in. Because the less information you give away, and you're playing blue and you're keeping mana open, people are just like, oh shit, like, what's going on here? Like, like, why? And I think we've gotten to the point where we're in an arms race now. And the funny thing is, Hope of Gearper's kind of made control decks pretty bad in some of the combo decks. Because it either checks the combo or checks the control deck and lets you go through. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like, ugh. You know, like, I got really frustrated, and then I started playing Niv, and I started realizing people don't play into open mana.
No, they don't.
And you
open blue mana.
Yeah, and you just slow, or open white mana. Silence was another thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Angel's Grace was a thing. People were jamming in their decks, and you start getting rewarded though for holding mana, holding interaction up, bluffing that you have interaction. Trying to play things at instant speed. And that's kind of where I felt like I wanted to be, and that's why I hopped on the Zur bandwagon, which was, you know, it's a different story, but I liked I liked holding mana open. I liked sitting there, and it was really funny because if you didn't have a Flash Hulk player, then you ended up doing the sandbagging in the pod and
the sandbagging. Dirty sandbagger.
Flash Hulk was a blessing to the format. Games ended on time. I can go spend time with Larissa. It's great. Like, I was off. Bring that back. I want games to end fast. People to get punished.
What? You don't think Storm games end fast?
Oh yeah, they end fast because of greed.
Greed, yeah.
Greed. Everybody wants to do the same thing. Oh, let's not start at that tangent. But anyways, well, going down something I feel passionate about right now.
I think though the difference is you look at the format as a turn 2 format being punished for tapping out with a card like Counterbalance, which just kind of sucked to tap out on turn 2 with. And now you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to jam Counterbalance because I've got 1, 2s, and 3s in my deck and 0s. And it's going to screw all the Flash, or it's going to screw all the Adnos players.
Yeah, it's going to blank enough.
Breach players.
Oh, I mean, I've just literally had to land on top of my library in a Counterbalance, like with the Counterbalance active. And it's been enough to just blank their, like, Lotus Petal off their Breach or something like that.
Yeah, I'm still not on the Counterbalance. I'm still holding on strong.
But I think that's, like, the biggest difference in the format right now. Like, really good card at one point right now, like, I think it's pretty strong versus I would never tap out to put this on the stack before because that's just scary.
No, I agree a lot, and I think you can find where I think Timmy and I went on a tangent. Shout out to Hire with his what's that thing called again? Knights? See,
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm sorry, I am not giving the correct information. But if you want to just DM Hire, he has a new podcast going on YouTube called Late Nights, and nights
Late
spelled
Night.
with a K. So nights. So yeah, we went on a tangent about where our current cEDH meta is in the Nexus. So everybody meta is different, but right now it's Storm X, and Storm includes and North Peter, Underworld Breach, just decks like that, and people not respecting other players in their pod.
Yeah.
But let's move on to something else. So, Richie, when you got into, I won't say, I don't like using the term for you, a new cEDH player, but when
New to a meta
got
or new to a play group.
Yeah, new to the Nexus community, or the cEDH community. What were some of the downfalls you would say as a newer player, or you would tell the newer player to avoid that you did while you're coming in?
I tell players a lot of times, sometimes in a nice, polite way, but I'm just gonna be blunt here. Shut up and listen. Like, been playing this, like, everyone's been saying, I've been playing Magic forever. I've been playing cEDH forever. I play with my pod, play with my play group at my store. That's cool. I play with probably 80 players, 90 players deep at this point, like different games and different pods and different areas, because I'm playing in Moda with friends, different play group, playing on the Nexus with people, enjoying it. Every now and then I'll pop my head over to EDH or cEDH games. Played a little bit on the Reddit server as well, and every table is different. Every community is different that you play in. Do not go in there with an attitude that you think you had proper threat assessment or you think you understood what was going on. Go in with an attitude and ask someone why they did something. Always ask why, what, and talk. Like, you can ask questions at the table. You can talk to people at the table. I will go into a cEDH game and someone has royally screwed something. I'm like, wait, stop. Like, you had this game won, let's rewind, and let's walk you through where you could have won the game and let you win, because it's a game. I don't care. If I lose, I lose in a game, but I'm like really happy to at least show someone, hey, you had the right line. Yeah, you had the right line. You had the, and I think there's a lot of hostility, because I think there's a lot of people who are like, well, that's not a playing to win mentality. I'm like, if I was playing against someone who absolutely knew what the hell was going on, I was going to lose that game regardless. I'm not, I'm going to swallow a tough pill. I lost a game. Woe is me. The world's coming to an end. In a tournament setting, not so much, right? Like, that's a little different. But there's play groups, and, sometimes you walk players through their win, and they're just like, oh, hey, this is really cool. And I think that, like, just asking for information is a really big point. And just talking about things, talking about plays, just general. Don't assume that you know everything that's going on, because you don't. And when you go, I guess when the Nexus we have, you can pretty much just pick a deck on the database and play. And this is, pertaining to the Nexus. I would say ask around, one of the senseis in there and say, hey guys, I am an X player. I'm a Storm player. I want to win with Storm. I want to win with combo. I hate blue. Like, what are some decks I can play? What are some of the better decks? I want to go burr with Godo. I want to win fast. I don't, So that's where I think that it's a really good point to start with. And don't come in with the assumption that your deck is cEDH, because I think that there's maybe 5 or 6 decks in the format that have been solved, and there's I mean, wars about the 97th, 98th, and 99th card in a deck on Discords. Absolute wars of people, you know, going back and forth that these 5 cards are better than those 5 cards. So you want to go and use all the resources you can about your deck, learn how it plays in the pod, and ask and, you know, and talk and communicate. Be open to learning because you'll go a long way. Don't be like me. Don't be like, I'm a know-it-all. I screwed up, because that's where I royally screwed up at the beginning when I was learning the format.
No, I mean, that's a lot of new players coming with that attitude of, I'm a know-it-all. I've been doing this and this, and and it kind of gives you a bad taste. Like, you know, like you want to teach the players to be, better, so you can have better games overall. But when you come in with that attitude, you know, people will try to humble you, is what I would call it. Sometimes you need to be humble to make sure you're not that big of a know-it-all, or you're not as good as you think you are. And I think that's the difference. Just come in humble, come in with the mindset to learn, and you'll become a better player in no time.
Sean, you are the person who humbles me the most when I get out of line, and to me, you are not far behind.
I don't know about it. It's because I'm louder.
He can be, but no, definitely that is true. So as we're talking about newer players, what would you tell some of the vets or some of the seasoned players of cEDH that they should avoid doing to newer players, to make sure newer players can come and feel happy about playing the game that we enjoy?
So, if you want to open the format up to people and you want more people to play, the number one thing you should encourage is, if someone screws up and you're in a casual setting and you were going to lose the game, you walk them through how they win. Because I see people are just like, oh, I want him to be humbled. I want him to remember. And I'm like, no. I want this guy to understand his deck first.
Right.
And then I want him to understand where his deck is positioned at the table. Then if he starts making misplays, you know, I want to start talking with him. But I want to do it in a friendly way. And the last thing I want to do is talk down to him, scold him with anything, say, oh, I'm so-and-so and my deck is on the database, or I'm so-and-so, prominent member, content creator.
Throw your name bombs down. Your titles.
Don't take a club and beat someone to death over it. And at the same time, welcome them. And if someone wants to play, let's say, Calamex, like they just like Calamex, they're drawn to it, then I'm going to encourage them to try to build the most competitive version of Calamex. I'm not going to sit there and say, this commander isn't viable. Do I think Calamex is good? I think Calamex is fine. I think it's like a niche deck. You can play it. It's not going to be bad. It's going to have a role. You'll win some games. But like, they'll start losing with Calamex and they'll be like, I don't know why I'm losing. What else can I play? And I'm like, well, you're in Rug. Why don't you try this Tidespout deck? You know, the Rog deck, the Thrasios Rog deck. I don't know how good that deck is. I'm not going to sit here and judge a deck on, you know, rank it power level wise or whatever, but I think that deck's fine. Like, totally playable and viable.
I think it's a good strategy. It does what it does well.
Yeah, it's like, it reminds me of what Urza was trying to do, except you're in 3 colors and, you know. I think that, like, those sorts of things are really important. Like, you want to encourage them. Now, if someone comes in with Yargle, okay? You'd be like, look, buddy, Yargle, this isn't something you can do in cEDH, and this is the reason why. You're going to be progressing your board, and you're not going to be able to stop everyone. Well, I've got an Abyss. That's not going to stop someone's Corval deck from going off, or that's not going to stop someone from casting their TNT after they've made, or their Thrasios after they made infinite mana to draw their deck out. Well, I've got a bunch of these stacks pieces. Stacks pieces are going to get bounced, with a Psych Rift or a Rushing River or something. Like, let's take a realistic approach to what you're trying to do.
Right.
And I think the hardest thing to convey is combat damage does matter, but it doesn't matter. Life totals don't matter the way that they do in a normal game. Like, you can't just beat someone to death in this format.
You can, but it's hard to do.
You have to have a way that you can just end the game. After you've stabilized, you have to have a way to end the game. You can't stabilize and dirtle. Sun Titan, Timmy. Jeez.
Sean.
Sun Titan beats get there, sir.
9 damage a turn adds up fast.
That's Inferno Titan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Inferno Titan.
Inferno Titan, yeah.
My bad, I meant Inferno Titan.
It's like, Sun Titan, what are we doing? We're turning Oblivion rings after we...
But what we do is we play Sun Titan to return our reanimation enchantment to get our Inferno Titan.
Oh, okay. You got a thing going. That's a lot of damage.
Big pod he's talking about here. Big pod.
But
go ahead, Richie.
I think the big thing is, and I think that this is just the truth about the format, you have to have a way in your deck once you've stabilized, if you want to play a slower deck, to end the game. Like, you want to have, I can end the game successfully by doing X, Y, and Z, and they're not difficult to put together, and it's very fluent. And I love the idea of Blood Pod. Blood Pod fumbles. I'm gonna use fumbles the ball there. They basically just cough the ball up after they're at the 2-yard line for a touchback, because someone just goes in and destroys everything that they've done throughout the game, because they don't just end the game in a way. And yeah, you can do it through combat, like Timmy says, but that's really hard.
I mean, I personally have found with Pod in particular, you stacks the game out, then you try to combo mid game. Since everybody's sitting on their interaction, they got nothing better to do. They're just going to stop you. So then you got to have a backup plan, and your backup plan is a bunch of 6/6s that are stacks pieces.
Super true that. Sometimes you can get there, but that's really hard. That's realistically difficult, and that's a very corner case deck.
It is.
But you have to have a way to just close the game. Just a nice, clean way to close it, and don't play bad cards in your deck, because they're good with how you can get there to the win. I think that a lot of decks are filled with really bad cards. Like, I have a very strong opinion on Grinding Station, that if that's a win condition, cool. But I think the card is absolutely terrible. And I see people play it with certain commanders to get these insane value breach lines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd just rather play, another tutor. I just want to make my deck more redundant at what it's trying to do. I don't want to sit there and be like, I can have this super awesome breach line that might go through, but it's susceptible to, to common stacks pieces like Collector Roof, Null Rod.
That's the other problem with Pod, is that one of its marquee win conditions does not play under its own stacks.
Yeah.
So I think that those are some really important things to tell new players that I don't see a lot of people do is, look, you've got bad cards in here, but I'm not going to word it as bad cards. And say, hey, you got cards in here, but I think we can upgrade them. I don't want to be negative, and I want to be very uplifting and saying, hey, so can you tell me why this is a good card in your deck? And I'm saying, they'll explain something, and I'm like, but if we could just tutor something out, would it be better? And a lot of times the answer is yes.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I agree a lot with that. Another question for you, Richie, is what do you think cEDH is? How would you describe it? Do you think cEDH is a card pool, or do you think cEDH is a mindset?
The mindset. I think that, so the thing that I gripe a lot with the community is, everyone says your deck's not cEDH, XYZ deck isn't cEDH. Baloney. I'm not going to call a deck cEDH and a deck not cEDH. I'm going to say that there are certain strategies that you can have that are in mindset to win, that are realistic strategies if we're playing, we're basically playing power level 10 out of 10, whatever. But what's to stop us from saying, hey, let's play Pauper Commander, but let's play it with the mindset to win the game?
Dude, the tryhards do competitive Pauper Commander.
Yeah, like, or like, hey, let's soft ban
really
10
fun.
cards. Let's soft ban 10 cards, right?
For more run study.
Just soft ban some cards. I don't want to see Oracle as a win condition. I'm pretty bored of it. Homogenized decks to the point that's just the best win condition. It really is. It truthfully is. But it just did homogenized deck building for in a very poor way that I didn't enjoy. But like, you start soft banning cards, or you soft ban generals. Like, you get to the point where you can't play X, Y, Z or whatever. Conquest, what is it, 80 cards? It's like Commander with 80 cards, or is it 100 card format? I don't know.
Pauper?
Conquest.
Conquest is 80. You have a 30 life total, and commander damage is 11, 12.
But they have like a relatively soft cEDH ban list.
Yeah.
Well, Conquest from the ground, like from the top down, like from its inception, was to be a balanced, competitive multiplayer format.
Who's to say that's not the same thing as what cEDH is trying to do?
No.
Like, but like the mind frame is there, in my opinion.
The mind frame is
we're trying to win the game.
The main difference is that the infrastructure for Conquest is designed to have a balanced multiplayer experience.
Right. It's like play. Legacy. It's like Legacy versus Vintage, in my opinion. Like, deck diversity matters, and you're trying to have more of a diverse meta.
Right. Make sure that the strategies are viable. Multiple strategies are viable. If something's too oppressive, they ban it. Like, it's definitely much more aggressively cultivated than Commander is, because Commander by its inception is the polar opposite. It is not balanced at all for competitive play or for multiplayer.
But like, you ask Sheldon, he was up in Alaska playing with the original Polar Dragons. They built the format that way because they were bored out of their mind.
Well, and it was specifically designed to be a break from competitive play because it was all the judges.
Yeah,
I mean, which you know about, but so that's one of the things. Like, that's one of the things. Like with Commander will never be a balanced format. It will never be fixed. No. It will never be equal. We will always have all of these busted cards, and the only thing that separates the busted cards, like people playing them and not playing them, is their own disposition.
What they view as busted. Like, someone's going to view Armageddon as busted and not understand why Mana Crypt's incredibly broken. You'd be like, oh, I don't have lands. Shucks. And I think that the format also has a really negative price entry point, and we're a super proxy friendly format, and that helps. Yeah. Because Legacy is dying. Like, Legacy saw a resurgence, with the pandemic. People are playing on Discords, but the format's dying because of the reserve list.
Right. It has been for years.
And and it's only getting worse. And Commander, like cEDH, people are selling their cards, and they're proxying. And by the way, they're proxying the right way. If you're going to proxy your cards, you either put proxy on them or you get NPC with different backs. If you ever try to proxy a deck and have it look like the Chinese counterfeits, that's really damaging, because that just encourages people to start proxying things. It encourages people to start proxying cards that they can pass off as real cards. Right. So you want to be like very distinctive on what you proxy. You can do cool art and stuff, and I really like NPC for existing like that. Like, that's one of the
their card quality is really good, actually, and it's come a long way. I think they've been making a lot of money since the pandemic off of that.
Yes.
Like, we're just, I think, growing because of that. Like, that's our cap. One of our choke points was the reserve list. It's no longer a thing. Like, no one says you can't play with proxies. Even Tier 1 Con is encouraging people to play with proxies on certain cards. And that's not a bad thing. Like, they encourage the real art so people understand understand what it looks like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and again, the only thing that's separating people from playing these cards and not playing these cards is their own disposition, which is
Correct.
why proxies are important. And it's the same thing with proxying. The only thing that separates people from proxying and not proxying, again, is their own disposition. Some people don't like the proxy. I don't like the proxy, even though I encourage and definitely tout it as a viable option.
And we're very lucky in the sense that I think we've been playing Magic for a while. I have 7 Tundras. Like, I'm not saying that as a flex.
As a flex, right.
I own 7 Tundras. I got them when they were relatively cheap. I remember UCs and Tundras at $10 a piece. Mm-hmm. I have a memory of someone ripping up a dual land before.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen those.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason why I started this project, is because I know that not everybody has a collection as deep as I do, and not everybody wants to proxy, so it's to kind of help give playgroups that don't want to proxy to make everything more accessible. You know what I mean?
And you know, let me ask you, you have a budget cEDH deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's still cEDH. It is a budget deck that is competitive, that is trying to win, that you firmly believe those 100 cards are your best way to win the game when you sleeve them up and you play them. And I think that
mostly, yeah. I the way I build them is more of like they're essentially cEDH starter decks. They're designed to get you help you build a collection so you can build towards it. So sometimes they're not built entirely optimal for the meta they'll play in. They're built with upgrading in mind and like scalability, because there's a lot of times that there's cards that are better if you're just playing in that sphere. Like a good example is, if you're playing in that sphere, you almost should either A, play dorks, or B, play board wipes. But there's not a lot of board wipes in cEDH, but in that $500-ish like mixed meta, like board wipes are a lot better.
Damnation.
Dockside's not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Even Pyroclasm, Wrath of God, like that kind of.
Yeah, those sorts of cards are really good. I agree, and I think that but that's cEDH to me. Like, that's like your goal is to win the game. Your turn. Our contract only states we are playing to try to win the game as best as we can.
Yeah,
that's the contract I understand. I don't know if anyone else is under a different contract.
Well, and it's playgroup dependent.
And
yeah,
you can totally say, hey, let's play mid power, and my mid power might be my Lord Windgrace deck, and Sean's mid power might be his cEDH Tatiova deck, but he just takes a couple cards out. But I mean, the deck is still strong.
And then I can totally jam a $500 one of my budget cEDH decks in that pod, and they would all be within reasonable power level. Yeah, that's the point. Like, the idea is that you can take this thing and you won't pub stop ostensively, but you can also scale it when you are ready to do so.
I have yet to have anyone change my mind on this. Like, I know that's a terrible meme, whatever, but it's a mindset. Change my mind. Like,
no, I agree with you. So, Richie, what current project do you have working on right now? Let's plug a deck. But let me first give my history on when I met Richie. When Richie came in, he was a very stubborn guy, and he was on Xur the Enchanter. And for people who know how I play Magic, is despise Turtle. I despise it with a strong heart.
Which is kind of funny considering you play with me all the time.
This was a different Turtle, good sir. This was a Turtle this was 30-minute Turtles, and this was Richie introduced me to this card called, Ancient Excavation?
Ancient Excavation. It's this card, and the funny thing, Spleen, I would say is the hardest critic on cards, like in decks. Like, he will critique cards that look weird or different. because he has a different mentality of how he looks at things. He's like, I actually like that. And I was just like, oh, Spleen said he liked it. I must be doing something right. So
the whole idea was ancient excavation was this 4-mana sorcery, right? Our instant.
It's an instant, yes.
It's a 4-mana instant where when I first saw it, he annos and then he played it. I was like, so you draw 30 cards. He was like, yeah. So I was like, and then I was like, okay, do you draw 30, discard 30? Yeah, but the whole idea, what blew my mind about the card was, you have 60 cards in your hand at once, and then you choose the 30 to discard. And then Richie is he's very deliberate. He doesn't like rush through things, so he'll go through the same 60 cards for 5 minutes, looking for the correct one, and then he'll flick his cards, and he'll look at it again, he'll look at it again, and they're like, okay, here we go, and then he put 10 here, and then he goes for another 10. I'm like, Richie, you know the 30 cards you want to go to. He was like, no, Sean, I gotta play around Silence, gotta play around Flusterstorm, and it was just a headache. But you know what? He beat me continuously with Zer until I was annoyed to play against Zer. He will play Zer, and I was like...
Were you annoyed to play against Zer or annoyed to play against Richie?
No, it was Zer. It was Zer the deck.
I just had that.
No, it was... No. We will have definitely arguments. It was also...
I was just getting the dig in while
he told me, like,
just
with
for the
City of Brass that you can't move for life. I was like, no, it doesn't work that way. And we go on long debates about what could it be and what couldn't.
Putting the trigger on the stack with City of Brass, end of turn silence no longer working, how I've gone through all these iterations. Necro triggers hold priority on the Necro triggers. Like, I went deep with Zer.
He went very deep with Zer.
Didn't you get this on the DB?
No, I don't.
Not yet.
Did you?
No, they're never gonna. Yeah, they're never gonna put it on the DB. I'm okay with that. I'm at peace. Like they have a questionable deck that's on there. I'm just gonna say that. There's a reason why I went the third round. That shows where that deck is. We on the Zer Discord, there is a dude who made a primer that we were trying to push to get on the DB. So
I hope it gets accepted. Let us not go on this database because I know some of us have strong feelings about the database.
Yeah.
So what's the current project? I know we're on Cody. You wanna do some plugs on Cody?
Yeah, so I have 3 different builds of Cody. I started with the Hypergenesis build. I thought it was Scar.
Before, let us tell people your commander and what it does.
Cody. Voracious Codex. It is... I believe that's what it's called. It is a 3-mana 1/4. It says you can't cast permanents. It has a 5-color identity because it's 4 mana tap, add Wooburg. You can cast, or when you cast your next spell this turn, you can exile the top cards of your deck until you get an instant or sorcery with a lower CMC and exile that card. Until end of turn, you can play that card without paying its mana cost. And then you randomize the cards you exiled this way and you put them on the bottom of your deck. So you're generally going to go into, and this is pre Modern Horizons too, but you would go into a Wheel of Fate. And the idea was that you were a Turbo Nas deck. You used Cody as a mana battery. David out there, shout outs to David, brilliant deck builder.
Moderator on the subreddit Discord.
Yes, just the dude is phenomenal. If you want a good resource, talk to him. That dude has a brilliant mind for Magic.
He does.
Bring to Light was an idea that he had thrown out there as a way to get ad nauseum, and I agreed and I liked it. But the other idea was that we'd cast all these spells like Autumn's Veil, Veil of Summer, Silence, the red the red one that makes your spell, your next instant or sorcery you cast uncounterable.
Or master.
Over master, yeah. You play these spells to set up an uncounterable wheel. And then from there, you're a Turbo Nas deck. You have a bunch of different rituals. You have like Ad Nauseam, a bunch of tutors. You're winning with Mnemonic Betrayal.
So here's the question, though. How do you win under Cody without permanence?
That's a good question.
So you got cards in there like Burnt Offering, Sacrifice. You're casting these to go and get your wheel. And the deck was okay. I played it in the Playing with Power tournament. I made top like 17. I got in there because my breakers were good enough. I actually went off turn 2 into a pod, going 4th. Fought through 4 different pieces of interaction, almost won the game. So like I thought the deck was pretty strong. Like, it has a really strong point that it can win at. It also had a really bad choke point where you basically, if you didn't cast a turn 1 or turn 2 Cody, the deck sucked. Like, you could get there with Ad Nauseam. We had Bolas' Citadel in there. It was just, ooh. Profane Tutor came along and posted a deck list that was similar to what I had been working on. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. This card's really good. And basically, I've been working on a deck called Cody Goes Nas. It's a Turbo Nas variant. You basically can cast Cody turn 1 or turn 2. Funny fact. So the thing that I kept running into problems with Bring to Light was you play a Bring to Light, but you never had, it was really hard to get Wooburg because you'd always use one of your mana to start your tutor chain. So with the new Profane Tutor that's a free demonic tutor, we can use something like Dream's Grip, Whittle, Emerald Charm to untap Cody. We still have 4 mana and we can reuse that mana.
Yeah.
And then we can go ahead, tutor up Bring to Light, cast Bring to Light to go get Ad Nause. But before Bring to Light resolves, we get to start tutor chaining. You get to start cascading because you get a second cascade. The cool thing about this deck is it's pretty consistent turn 2, turn 3 Goldfish, which doesn't really say a lot, but Goldfishing gives you an idea of how fast the deck can be under optimal conditions. Right. The original build didn't get to play a whole lot of control magic. You're playing a bunch of these 1 mana cantrip spells that are terrible that try to tutor into wheels. Like you can't start the tutor chain, off of a Flusterstorm or something like that. Now, we get to play Force of Will, Force of Negation, Misdirection. We're on Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting SWAT. So we actually have all these 1 mana spells like Silence, Autumn's Veil, and Veil of Summer. There's another one I'm missing, but we have those and we have free counters. So we can use those pitch counters to proactively push the combo through.
Right.
And we're not wheeling, which is a big deal because when you wheel, you sometimes give your opponents answers. We're not playing Hypergenesis, which just gives your opponents things and ways to answer what's going on.
Right.
So we're able to basically sit there and play Magic by ourselves, as Sean likes to say.
All right, we just like to fondle ourselves in here. A little bit there, a little bit here. All right, so we will have a deck list in the show notes.
Can you drop it in the chat?
Yes, here is the deck list. I will drop it in the chat.
Awesome.
I am on Moxfield. I think the deck list is public now. If you join the Nexus, it's posted in the Nexus chat if you wanted to read that too. That's a great resource for players, by the way. The brewing channel on the Nexus, Deep does a great job with the brew crew.
He does.
So that's, and just because you see a deck, like I said, that you don't agree with the card choices, look at what the deck's doing. Figure it out if that's interesting to you. And if it is, work on it,
I brew a little different than you.
Well, Timmy, you do.
So, anything you want to plug? Where can people find you? Social medias, whatever you want to plug here. Richie, what would you like to do?
At BigRichie 2004 on Twitter. Then I try to start streaming toward the middle of the summer. I've kind of got pushed back. I'm going to try to stream some cEDH games and some regular video games, just some friends again. Got a different title in the company, so I'll be working a couple less hours a week, which means I can start playing some more, which I'm really excited about. And then if you like crazy brews, I'm on Moxfield. I try to take commanders that look really interesting, that do really powerful things, and I try to push them in different directions that people haven't noticed or haven't done.
On a what tag can they find on Moxfield?
I think it's BigRichie 2004 still. So,
yeah, I'll link his deck, and then that'll have his
Catiova's a deck I've been working on too. I'm really focusing on that right now because I enjoy the deck. I really do. It's one of the few decks where I feel like I could play in any pod level and feel comfortable playing it, and
at least a version of it, yeah.
And it feels good. I think that I was very humbled when I started playing this. I am also on a build that I am starting up right now, looking into Razakats. It's a deck that I think has been optimized pretty damn well, but
yes, I agree.
I'm still going to look into it. I'm looking into survival decks that we're recording this. At the time, we just had Priest of Fellrights get released as a spoiler.
Yep. Today, actually, right? Or yesterday?
Yes.
That's going to be a great reanimation for reanimator decks. I'm pretty excited about it.
I'm excited about all the squirrels.
Oh, yes. We were just shooting the breeze. I'm excited about playing Squirrel Storm in Corvold and exploring that. And by the way, that's just pushing the boundaries of decks. Like,
are you going to put Earthcraft in?
Are
you going to put Earthcraft?
Don't tempt me with a good time. Don't you dare tempt me with a good time.
I love it, dude. It gives all your dorks haste.
I love Earthcraft, too.
Oh, my goodness.
It gives all of your creatures tap for a basic.
Yeah.
It gives turns all your creatures into dorks and gives them haste.
And it does make very interesting politics conversation.
It does.
Telling someone, untap this land so I can use my interactions, so I can save mine. But Richie, it was great having you here. Hopefully I can get to play some Street Fighter on your stream if you ever invite me. I've been begging for, but anyways, we'll not talk about that.
Shonbo, you come up here, and I got a chair right here.
You can sit on Grandpa's lap.
I got an SNES controller. I got an SNES, or I got one of the crappy fight sticks that are set up for SNES. I'll use a controller. You can use the fight stick. And I'll sit there, and I'll show you old Sagat, and I'll tiger you to death. And then you'll be like, oh, pick a new character. And I'll show you the wall of Honda. Never press back. Only go forward with Honda. I will bitch slap you with 1,000 fists.
And then you'll say, Honda forever!
Okay, alright. We're gonna end this stream here with what Timmy did. He didn't even do the X. He did the arms up.
X-Force.
There we go. Well done. Remember to hit the subscribe to give us that subscription. Hit the bell so you can get the notifications. And if you want to donate $1 to our great efforts, you can find us at cEDH_budget_brews. If you want to find resources for your budget decks, you can find us at budgetbrews.club, where you can afford all the expensive stuff. So we have everything you need to play a competitive deck on a lower budget. Thank you for having us. Timmy Richie, you are great as usual. And we will see you with the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.